Hi, in this video we're going to take a look at processing very large data sets in KBL. Sometimes this goes under the heading of big data. Here, for demonstration purposes, we're going to stick to the 0.5 to 3 million record range. So let's have a look at a typical kind of data analysis that we might want to do in KBL. Now what we have on the screen here, this blob, represents the population of Herefordshire, and Herefordshire, as you can see from the map, is approximately southwest of Birmingham. And what we have here is a heat map. As I move in, you'll see that the heat map changes its scale and granularity, and I can perhaps change that into histograms. Each of these little columns represents the population for a postcode. So I can zoom in. We're based up at Leominster. There's Leominster here, and go right in close if I want to. We're somewhere around here, and if I touch one of these columns, then I can see the postcode population. Okay, now I'm not just going to look at the population figures. This comes from the Office of National Statistics, the Census in 2011. What we're going to do is combine census data, which is population and demographic information, with crime figures. Now, West Mercia Police Authority, like other authorities in the country, are obliged to publish their information, and they provide crime figures. But those crime figures, basically, the recorded crime is based on XY positions, the geographical locations. So one of the things I have to do in this exercise is to convert the XY location into postcodes. And once I've got into postcodes, I can roll up figures by postcode, and I can combine it and compare it with populations. So rather than linger on this wonderful diagram very long, we're going to move over and have a look at some KBL. Now the ONS thoughtfully provides a summary file for population figures for all postcodes in the UK. Now there are over 1.3 million postcodes, so there are over 1.3 million rows of information, rows of data in the file, in this ONS file. So I've written a script here which will basically create me an index. Now the postcodes are in alphabetical order, so that if I create an index, I can actually create the row number for the start of each area. So if I wanted to write a generic function to select the area I want to look at and obtain the population statistics, then I can use my index rather than use the actual file to do the crunching. So this script here is not a very long script. There we are, it's about 40 lines, something like that. What this enables me to do is to use KBL's file import processing ability to move data into a staging area and then apply some logic to it. So I'm going to just run my script up to a certain point, and I'm going to just double click there. I'm going to do reset run to, and there we are. It's actually read some data from the ONS file directly into the file staging area, and it's told me that it's read 1.3 million, or nearly 1.31 million. Okay, I'm now going to let it run all the way through, and then we'll look at the index file that this creates. Right, 3 minutes later, the process is finished. So if I look in main, I can now see the index that's been created. So starting at B1 starts at row 6633. If I look down for my HR code, there we are, HR, Herefordshire, that starts at row 467,231. Okay, so I can use this index now to just speed up some of my processing. So I'll stop there, and if I look at the bottom of my file, I won't describe the processing that's going on, but it's exported to a KBIN file, a binary file, our postcode index. So we'll come on to that in a minute. Right, we're going to move over to a script called the postcode population selector, and I'm going to run the first part of this. So we're going to use the index file that we created as a pull down list so that we can choose the postal area that we want to select, and it'll use our index to identify the row number for the start of the record. So I'm going to jump to that line there. Up comes a little form where we're asked to select the postal area, and I'm going to choose HR, which is our Hereford one, and I'm going to proceed, and there we are. So the file command has extracted instantly the HR codes. Okay, and against each of the HR codes there is the actual postcode, total population, males, females, and the number of households. Now that's the information that we want to use for our data visualization for population. So the rest of the code, the rest of the KBL, oh, it's actually starting to read. No, we've stopped. The construction below is basically what we use to create the file, and at the end, although I've inhibited it for the minute, we're going to export an XLSX file that's prefixed with the postal area and census 2011, and we're going to use that, or that's what we use to create the visualization for the population data. So that's the first part of our task. Now let's come on to our crime data. This is a file, it's a CSV file that you can download from the web, which is the West Mercia crime data. Crime ID, month reported, is the type of crime on the right hand side, but you'll notice that each record has got a latitude and a longitude. So the only way that we can make sense of that really is the location is to take that latitude and longitude and turn that into a postcode. So we've written a little script in KBL which actually allows us to filter through the crime data, look at the lats and longs, turn those into postcodes, and then select from the postcode area or either the area or the sector that we want to look at in our analysis. So I'll show you a bit of code that does that. Some more useful data you can get from the ONS site is the centroid information, that's the lats and longs or eastings and northings for each of the 1.31 million postcodes in the UK, which means that you can use the postcode position to convert, say, XY coordinates into postcodes, which we're going to do here. So I'll dismiss this for a minute. So what I want to do is to convert my crime data, the geographical data, location data, into postcodes. So I read the police data and I read the ONS data for Herefordshire, and by triangulation I can determine the postcode for each of the crime records, and from there I can select those that I want for my analysis and data visualization. Now this isn't the whole program, this is the snippet of it that actually produces the postcode. Okay, so having converted my crime data from XY positional data, latitude and longitude data, into postcodes, and having selected the postcodes that I want, and having rolled up the crime records by postcode, I've then exported that onto a comma delimited file, which I can then use for my data visualization. So when I express this on a map in Excel, in this case, I can see my crime figures neatly grouped by postcode. Okay, so there we are, and these are the cities. So we've got Ross there, we've got Hereford, and we've got Leominster, Bromyard. So as you can see, probably most of the reported crimes are where there are centres of population. And I can confirm that by looking at the population map. So there's the population map. Put it back onto heat map. So pretty much you'd expect most crime to be where there are most people. Now I've actually gone a step further and combined the crime data with population data, so we can actually normalize it by the population. So this is the number of crimes per 100 people in postcodes. So there are a lot of postcodes where there are no crimes. So there are people living there, but there are no crimes to report. And if you look in the center here, this is Gotham City, sorry, I mean Hereford. It does look as though there's a bit of a crime wave, and if we look at the number of crimes per 100 people in 2006, we can see there are 7,600 reported crimes per 100 people. Now, it's not that the people of Hereford are particularly criminal intent, it's because very few people live in the high street, and that's where a lot of the crimes are being reported. So probably virtually no one lives in the town centre, so that's why we've got that kind of a peak. So again, just before we close, having processed large amounts of ONS data through KBL, having converted positional data from from the XY positions into postcodes and rolled it up and maneuvered it in various ways, we can do some quite spectacular visualizations for very little, very simply using existing office facilities plus KBL. So I hope that gives you a bit of an idea of the kinds of projects you can undertake with KBL in KBL Studio Express. So just to summarize what we did, we got data from the ONS, that's the Office of National Statistics, for lat and long positions for the centroids, for postcodes. We've got the census data from 2011, which is population estimated by postcode. We've got West Mercia crime data from the data.police.uk. We've used KBL to extract data from both the ONS for population data and for the crime data from the police database. We've converted lats and longs into postcodes. We've rolled up the crimes by postcode and normalized per 100 inhabitants. We've exported the data into flat files to CSV, and in this case we used Excel for some basic data visualization. So a pretty straightforward project in its entirety. Thank you for listening.